Yay, we are live. Scribblers, thank you all so much for your patience while we've been working on this. We obviously have had some technical difficulties today, and so we are proceeding with the amazing author Andrew Main. Andrew, I'm very, very excited that he's joining us today because he's probably one of the most fascinating people you guys are going to get to hear from, just based on his entire career and all the experiences that he's had. And so I'm just super excited to have Andrew with us today. Hi, Andrew.
Hi, if I'm the most fascinating person you've had, I hope this is the first episode. Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here. Unfortunately, we couldn't have Erica here, and Erica is really, I'm always prepared just to sit and listen to her because she's amazing. So I will do my best, though. I'm a novelist. I have background where I was in the entertainment industry for a while. I had a TV series on A&E where I did a magic show. I just had a Shark Week special last year where I basically swam with great white sharks, and I built a suit to make myself invisible because I have a lot of stupid ideas and sometimes people enable them. I started writing professionally. It was 2009, 2011, I think around there is when I started doing that. So, that was a, kind of a big, change for me, was to try to become a professional writer and making all the mistakes, but trying to figure out how to do things the right way, which I'm still trying to figure out. But I've been very lucky, and I've been able to work with some great people. So I've benefited from the kindness of a lot of people along the way.
I love it. Scribblers, I think you guys are going to be really, really interested in this today. Andrew is actually an Edgar-nominated author, which is like a massive, massive honor. And obviously, he's worked.
Hello.
Erica.
Yay!
Andrew could have told you I couldn't do this, but family was able to get me on. Hi, everybody. I really apologize.
No worries. Hey, we're all sticking together during these crazy times in the world anyways. So we're just super excited to have you join us.
Thank you.
Stealing the spotlight again, Erica.
Yeah, just pop it in real quick right as I'm talking up Andrew.
Okay, well, I made it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much for joining. Okay, well, you guys, we're going to jump right in. So Scribblers, today we've got a mega packed chat now because we have two awesome guests, and these are always my favorite when this happens, when we have, I call the dynamic duo. We've got the author and the agent, so we have the powerhouse. And so when looking at both of your bios, we already went with Andrew. Erica, can you just kind of give us a quick introduction real quick about yourself, where you work? And
Sure. I work at Trident Media Group. I'm a senior VP. I'm both a literary agent, and I also do book to film for several of the agents there. I've worked at ICM, WME, and I also ran Studio United Artists in New York for a couple of years, and I've taught at NYU Graduate Film School. So that's very quickly who I am.
I love it. I mean, I feel like this is a super, super exciting duo because you guys, you have the typical or the kind of a non-typical agent-author relationship because you've both been involved in film, TV, and books. So I kind of want to know, just to kick it off, did you find each other in the typical way of like the book query letter path, or did you find each other somehow, through film? Or
Well, we found each other because this was just as people were discovering writers who were self-publishing. And actually, Robert Gottlieb, who's the chairman of Trident, said, "This guy seems interesting. You should get in touch with him." Mm-hmm. And that was, I think, 11 years ago? No, 9 years ago?
9 years ago. I was trying to figure that out myself, and I couldn't remember. It was 9 years ago.
And I just fell in love with Andrew's work. I thought he was amazing. And it was kind of an interesting journey. And then I'll let Andrew talk about what it's like working with or without an agent. In that Andrew was quite successful as a self-published author. And we moved him to a traditional publisher. And the books were wonderful. I think there were three books, right? 3 books at HarperCollins. But HarperCollins couldn't publish as fast as Andrew could write. So instead of doing a few books a year like he was used to, they can only do a book at best a book a year, or maybe a book a year and a half. And we realized that the way Andrew's audience responded to him and the way he writes, and this was at just the time that Thomas and Mercer was breaking on Amazon as an imprint. And we went to them, and the sales we're now on our 4th or 5th deal with them.
Mm-hmm.
And his books just exploded. And I won't say how many he sold. That's up to him if he wants. But he is one of Thomas and Mercer's top selling authors. And we've just gotten the new contract in now. So, but Andrew, he kind of, I mean, the dream was to have kind of a braid of self-publishing, Thomas and Mercer, and traditional publishing, but we had to kind of drop traditional publishing because they can't keep up with Andrew.
So Erica, what is it like to represent someone who also has his feet in so many other avenues? Do you use that for pushing him as an author to publishers?
Yes, I do. But I think that Andrew is somebody who knows his audience better than publishers know his audience. Mm. And I think Andrew, I mean, are there writers on this? I think there are, right?
Oh, yeah. That's everyone here.
I think that if you start your career as a self-published author and you take off, sometimes the publishing houses they don't understand your audience. They only understand their audience. So you have to kind of a writer needs an agent and an agent needs a writer who understands the difference and can work to the writer's strength, I think. I don't know, Andrew, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. That when I started as an author 9 years ago now, remember, my goal was I wasn't going to try to do sort of the publishing route because I didn't like gatekeepers, and I knew the publishing industry had way more content than they could produce. And so I said, I didn't want to try to take my chances with that because, hearing that Harry Potter got turned down 40 times and knowing I'm not writing Harry Potter, so what were my odds? And I thought, okay, well, self-publishing is great because I can find an audience. And if I meet great people along the way, then that would be wonderful. But I wasn't going to try to I wasn't going to let my career wait on that. And I was very fortunate with the first novel out. I got a wonderful email from Gottlieb, and I looked him up, and there's this amazing track record with him and Trident, and then this is a guy that worked with Tom Clancy, and then he has me talk to Erica, and then it was I didn't actually look up Erica. I just talked to her on the phone, and I was getting solicited at that time by a couple other agents, and I had people giving me kind of the LA pitch, the kind of like, we'll make it big. I know this studio and I know that. Where Erica was just very real. Erica was very real about, building a career as an author, very much that. I knew she wasn't a person that was just trying to get a percentage of an existing enterprise. She was very interested in helping develop a career for me as an author. And that's what I appreciated. And that's, was the best decision I ever made was, it's about fit. It is finding the person that you get along with.
It's also about having when I first started as an agent, there weren't nearly as many agents as there are right now. But it really was about how you respond to each other, because as a writer, you are giving your life's blood to somebody to sell it for you. So you want to make sure that whoever that person is somebody that you can trust and you feel will sell your work basically hand sell it. It's not like, okay, I've got this writer, I've got this writer, I've got this writer. Which one do you want? It's not that. It's to me, maybe because my father was a writer, but to me, it's a very serious relationship, and I need it to be a partnership. I do my job and you do your job, but we do them together. I like to think that when there's a tie, I'm the tiebreaker between the writer and me. But I really want the writer to understand what I'm doing and why. When we made the decision to go to Amazon, it was a big decision. Because there's not that many they don't do very many printed books. And what is your goal? Is your goal to sell a lot, or is your goal to see yourself in a bookstore? Well, now there aren't many bookstores left anyway. But, what's the goal? And how do we achieve the goal? We both have to manage expectations with each other.
I love that. So can I ask, now that you guys have, you've gone through traditional and also going to Amazon, what's kind of the creative process like on the back end now? Andrew, when you, typically, when I write a book and I send it to my agent and we're going to send it out to publisher list, he reads it, we go through a couple of rounds of submissions, and then he goes and takes it out and pitches it. So what's that experience like for you two now? Is it kind of the same thing? Do y'all do editorial stuff together before it goes to Amazon? Or are you kind of, just doing it yourself and it goes to computer?
By this point, Andrew has 3 series that he's writing. So when we decide to go to a new when our contract is up and it's up to go to a new contract, it's which series is he going to continue, and how many books do they want a contract for. So usually for Andrew, this isn't true for most writers, but we go to the editor and say, okay, these are the 3 things he's thinking of. What do you like? What do you want him to do? And he'll write a couple of paragraphs or maybe a chapter and show it to me and the editor. Usually he shows it to me first, and we say, we kind of say, well, this works, this doesn't work. And then we show it to the editor. And the editor is somebody we've worked with for a long time now. And she's very good about saying, I think I can sell this one to the team or that one. But the good thing about Andrew is that all those series are selling so well that it's really the goal at this point is to not let the audience go too long without the next book, because you don't want to disappoint the audience.
Andrew, how do you manage that creatively, knowing that you have these books that are selling like hotcakes? Does it get to you mentally, or are you just kind of staying in your lane?
Oh, no stress, never, none at all.
Andrew was really stressed. I don't know if anybody knows this, but a year ago, Andrew was on Shark Week.
Yep.
And I don't know if anybody saw it, but he's also an illusionist in his other life. And he swam with a school of great white sharks off the coast of Australia and made himself disappear in the midst of the sharks. So he doesn't deal with a lot of stress.
I do, and I've told, I was terrified of that. I get pressure. I get the same thing everybody else does. And there's that, when you're an author and you start off to write a book just for your own delight, your own enjoyment, it's a very free sort of thing, because the only person waiting for it to happen is you. Then once you make that book and once you get your first deal, then all of a sudden, oh, wow, deadlines are real now. Money is real, but deadlines are real. And it's a very different environment than when you're just creating something with an open-ended, date to do that. And I spend a lot of time working on making sure I'm efficient, that I use my time right, that, by the time when a story gets turned in to my editors, that we don't have to go do structural changes. And part of this happened because the first deal we made with a traditional publisher was when I went into happened right when I went into production on a TV series. And you hope for one of those things to happen, but when you have both things happen at once, I had to figure out how to write, sitting in a little apartment in the middle of Los Angeles, while in pre-production, sitting on a bed with no desk, or working on, I'm doing a Shark Week show, then writing about a woman who's a police diver as I'm hopping on an airplane to Australia and trying to, just fit that in there. So I think the best thing you can do to deal with the pressure is to understand yourself. So I spent a lot of time when books didn't flow. I asked myself, why didn't this flow? What happened? And when books went really great, I would sit down and make notes about what happened. Why did this work out really well? And I think we can improve. I'm a big believer. I think writers are often like athletes. We get very superstitious. Like, I need to have my cozy sweater. I need to have my cup of tea. And I'm like, forget that. Put yourself in the most. I've written in casinos. I've sat in the middle of a casino writing while my friends were having fun because I needed to get something done. Mm-hmm. So I'm a big believer in just learning how to get so far out of your comfort zone to get things done.
I absolutely love that.
I think that writers really have to know a few things. One of them is, if you want to be a writer, that is a business, that is a job, and you have to go to work every day. And it's not, like Ernest Hemingway, I'm going to go sit and be inspired in a cafe. I mean, maybe you will be, but this is, and today more than ever, when you sell a book, you're on a publisher's list. I think there are 4 lists a year, and your book goes into a list. So if you don't make that date, it's not like, oh, I can move it a month. I mean, maybe you can, maybe the publisher can, but it's not like being like I was late for this, because then you screw up the whole list. They have money allotted to you, they have time allotted to you for the fall list or whatever it is. And if you don't turn it in, that's okay, but you have to let them know 3 months before, I'm going to be late.
Yeah, I think as a writer, you really learn how much of a passion you have for writing and how much you really can push yourself to create. I wrote through maternity leave, and I wrote through losing 15 pounds of body weight because of being really sick through pregnancy. So you just make it work, and you find out how much you love your craft when you're willing to push through those things.
As I said earlier, my father was a writer, and he said, unless you wake up every morning knowing that you can't not write today, if you don't write, you're going to be miserable, then there's no point in doing it, because it's such a hard job. It's so hard to be a writer, I think.
Yeah, and Lindsay, I think the example you just gave, I think you just said that about maternity leave. I've never had to deal with anything like that. I've never dealt. Yeah, I've had a very cozy life as a writer compared to that, and I think that's because you see a lot of times writers, we're creative. So we're all very creative. It means we're very creative at excuses, and often what will happen is when we encounter a roadblock, something gets difficult, we will look for a story, a narrative to explain why we can't finish this. It might be like, oh, my hours changed at work. My kid's been asking me questions. I don't have a regular job or a kid, so I don't have to deal with that. But point is, we come up with excuses, and the more creative we are, the better those excuses. And we have to teach ourselves to just say, no, I need to get things done, whether it's waking up an hour earlier or it's figuring out how to write on your phone when you're standing in line somewhere, etc. And that separates, I think, the people from those who get things done and people who talk about it.
Yep. I love it.
I'm going to jump right into asking some of the subscriber questions. This question is from Madison, and it's for Andrew. Just how do you go about self-publishing? What is the process that where do you even start when you're considering self-publishing?
So I'm very biased about my experience, and I think that I think opportunities for self-published authors are even better today than even when I started. I think there's a lot more people doing it, but if you're disciplined and focused, it's a great opportunity. I first started, I'd write a book, I would get a friend to go in and edit it, which I realized the fault of not having a professional proofreader. I would do my own cover, I would make the book look as professional as I can on my own. And now that's a lot easier with things like 99 Designs and other places where you can get people who know what they're doing. And, you can hire some of the same people I work with, as editors to freelancers to proof stuff and you get stuff that's really done that looks good. The step as far as once you have a thing that you think is good, the program that I think is great, and it's, and it frustrates other people, but I push Amazon's, KDP, their Kindle Digital Publishing. It is very author friendly. It doesn't cost you anything to put your book up there, to upload your book onto there. All of a sudden your book is up there next to, a published book. Your book can be next to an author who got $1 million advance. Your book can be listed right next to it when people are looking for a topic or something to find. It is a great leveler there. Now you've got to have the quality and you've got to work to push your book, but guess what? When you're the publisher, you got to work hard to push it too. And the beauty is now for discoverability, one of the programs is they have the Kindle Unlimited, which I think many of you are probably familiar with. For those of you who don't know, there are a number of people who are high volume book readers. They just pay $10 a month. And there's a number of books or ebooks that you can read as much as you want. And Kindle Unlimited works where every month Amazon puts $40 million into a fund and they divide that up by the total number of page reads. for an indie author, the advantage here is that when you're trying to build an audience, and that's really what you want to focus on in the beginning, is building your audience, there is no cost effectively. If somebody is in that program already, they don't have to worry about paying $5 to read your book. They can just download your book, start a few pages in. If they don't like it, they'll move on to something else. So people are less afraid to try new authors through that program. And that is a really good way now, I think, for authors to build an audience as an indie.
I just now, because I'm me, I'll just say the downside of self-publishing now is that because there are so many people, and because a lot of people like Andrew or a couple of other writers that I represent became so extremely successful, everybody decided they could get their books published, self-published. And when Andrew first started, for an independent author doing it on his or her own, it was not as costly as it is now. And the sort of the bloodstream of the self-published books flowed much freer. There's now a lot of cholesterol in that bloodstream, so it's harder to get noticed.
Yes.
I mean,
there's over 2 million books a year get published that way. And that's the disadvantage, is that, like, you have to promote and push that out there. It is not like you put the book into the ecosystem and magic happens. And I talk to authors like, I put my book there, nothing's happened. I'm like, yeah, there are 2 million books. And the better, like, the ideal is if you can work with a team, i.e. publishers can help make the thing happen for you, and the right fit, then of course, that's a wonderful choice. And
but the other downside of self-publishing is that because the first thing that editors look at before the manuscript, before anything, is they go to BookScan. And they see, or in the case of Amazon, they'll go on Amazon and see what the numbers are. And if the numbers are not in the top 1,000 with, I mean, most people don't get as many reviews as Andrew, but with, at least a few hundred reviews, they're going to say, the traditional publishers, the they out there, will be less likely to say, well, the book was, he or she self-published and it didn't do that well. So that's another downside now, which was not so before when Andrew started. I mean, at the time that Andrew and I met, it's just at the time that self-published authors, we were a teeny bit early, but we're beginning to be taken seriously by traditional publishers. And now, yeah, they are taken seriously, but you have to really hit those numbers. And that's expensive to do that kind of promotion. I mean, I have one client who works with another Amazon imprint, works with Grand Central, and does her own books. When she does her own books, even though she's very well known in her area, she still spends, $10,000 pushing those books. When Amazon does it, she doesn't spend anything. They do everything for her. So I haven't self-published since I've been with Amazon, because it's just been, they're so efficient at what they do. And it's like the fit with the publisher is such a critical thing. If your publisher's a good fit for you and that's the opportunity, then I think it's a great place to be.
For sure.
I don't know if that answer was helpful.
We've got one more subscriber question I want to get to, just because you guys are the perfect pair for this. This subscriber wants to know, she says, I'm making my books movies and I'm literally writing a screenplay as we speak. My question is, can an author do both, or should I stick to just writing my novels?
Can I answer that?
Yes.
Okay, it's two different muscles, writing a script and writing a book. Just in terms of selling, right now, I think it would be incredibly hard to sell a spec screenplay. Also, people are much more likely, meaning producers or studios or streaming services, are much more likely to buy a book, to convert it to hire their own screenwriter to write it. They much prefer to have the original IP. But also, I will say that when I first started as an agent, the goal for a lot of writers was to have their books turned into film and become screenwriters and then directors. And for some of my clients, it worked, but for some of them, it really kind of destroyed them as book writers. They never got back to it. So you have to realize it's a very different way to writing a script or a book. That's the short answer. I don't know if that's the answer, if that's an answer, but that's
Yeah, I'd add that like I'd already been in the entertainment industry and I'd already done the sort of silly sort of dance of like, we love it, we love it, we love it. And a year later, like, man, I can't cash those. We love it, those. And it is the level of BS that you have to deal with is really, really high. And, my girlfriend is a screenwriter and I've kind of, helped her sort of understand the expectation of that. The beauty of writing it as a book first is you have a book, you have a thing you own, you control from the moment it comes from your head to the point that it's published, it's yours. Your editors can make notes and suggestions, but you have control. A screenplay, my girlfriend just sold a screenplay and, already it's being changed before production because the director wants to do this or do that. And that's certainly the nature of things. But if you own a book, the book, it's very easy to make a book a screenplay, and a book is an asset. An unpublished screenplay has a limited utility, but a book has a lot more.
Well, that is all the time we have for, but goodness, I feel like we could just talk to you both forever. I really wish we had more time. But yeah, thank you, Andrew and Erica, for joining us. And thank you, Scribblers, for joining us. We'll see you next month for the exclusive.
Okay, I apologize for being late. I hope I didn't eat into too much time. Sorry.
If people have questions, by the way, I'm on Twitter at Andrew Main, and I'm happy to answer them to say from Scribbler, and I will, even more so. I do Periscopes all the time. I'm happy to talk about, my silly approaches towards this stuff.
I love it. Thank you guys so much. This was a wealth of information. Scribblers, this chat will be up for at least 30 to 60 days, I believe. So definitely I would recommend going back in and writing down a lot of the quotables that they dropped. Put those on your wall, put them on your screensaver, and get to writing. If you dream that you want to do this full time, then hey, nothing's going to stop you but you. So go for it.
Good luck, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.